I want to show you something because I think we talk about so many things, all four of us do, as being locked, right? We know this won't matter because X, Y, Z. We don't know what we don't know. Here's Congressman Jamie Raskin basically making that point to Chuck Todd over the weekend.
And there are people who are just realizing that they are in possession of facts or evidence that the committee might not have. And the chairman has encouraged everybody to come forward. And, you know, we've got a tip line.
You have useful information. Has this tip line provided you with actual concrete information that ended up being true, that you've investigated?
We know things this weekend that we didn't know last weekend.
David Jolly, I heard that every time I hear it, I gasp. I mean, this is, you know, the public, there was so much pressure for this committee to have a public phase. And I'm not sure that there was a lot of science to when this public phase commenced, but it is abundantly clear that the investigation is ongoing and in some ways accelerated.
Yeah, that's true, Nicole. I think it's been a remarkable week watching the J6 committee play out for this particular reason. They have isolated Donald Trump as the bad actor in this entire process, right? Even when we talk about the charge of conspiracy, as Harry refers to, we know there are others involved. We know Eastman was involved and Giuliani and somewhere the Trump apparatus was involved. But what they did almost out of the gate was they kind of shed Ivanka and Jared, and they shed Bill Barr, and they shed these other people who you could have suggested, look, they had a heavy hand in this process. And they immediately began to isolate Donald Trump as the person who received counsel, knew it was false, and he called the play. And Donald Trump exclusively himself personally called the play and said, we are going to commit this fraud on the American people. We are going to possibly commit this crime against the United States of America. And because of that, when Jamie Raskin says, look, the country sits in a different place today on J6 than it did last week, he's exactly right. And I think the question is ready to, or the country's ready to find out, what are we going to learn this week that's going to look different than last week?
Yeah, it's such a good point. And Jake Sherman, in the court of opinion, Liz Cheney has made abundantly clear that there's one person on trial and his name is Donald Trump. And in the court of public opinion, Liz Cheney has accused Donald Trump of obstruction of an official proceeding. Adam Kinzinger just accused him of being part of a seditious conspiracy. There are fraud allegations, again, being levied against him in the court of public opinion by this congressional committee. I want to show you something that Congressman Jim Clyburn said. We talk so much about the politics of investigating Trump. Jim Clyburn has elevated the politics of doing nothing.
I've been in Florida, Georgia, Connecticut, New Jersey, Michigan, all in the last 30 days. And I'm telling you, people are concerned that the Department of Justice may have too many carryovers from the last administration and not moving in order to do what's needed to protect this democracy.
Are you concerned that they're not moving quickly enough?
Yes, I am. There's no question about that. I talk to my constituents, and I get a lot of my marching orders from them. They're concerned, so am I.
Obviously, the Justice Department, Jake, has a different process, a different mission, and a different standard than the Select Committee. But adjacent to questions and concerns about investigating and prosecuting an ex-president should be what Jim Clyburn raises here, and that is questions and concerns about the politics of not.
So a few thoughts here. Number one, I would say that it's undoubtedly true that this is the most effective congressional committee investigation process I've ever seen. Just from top to bottom, a very, very effective presentation of facts backed up by not innuendo, but by words from people who worked for and with Donald Trump. That's number one. Number two, I don't think that there is any doubt that there is disagreement on this committee among Democrats and among Republicans about the wisdom of pushing the Department of Justice to investigate Donald Trump and to charge Donald Trump. I think that people think, I mean, we had an interaction, my colleague John Bresnan had an interaction with Benny Thompson a couple days ago where he, and this became a big hubbub, where he kind of said, you know, we're not going to recommend charging Donald Trump. That's not what we're here to do. And then he had to immediately walk that back. So there's definitely But that's a political question, right? I mean, that's a political question the committee is wrestling with. And at the end of the day, I mean, I spoke to Nancy Pelosi about this last week. She said, I'm not going to get involved. The committee should do what they should do. And I agree with you on a major point you're making, Nicole, which is we have no idea what the impact of this hearing is. Now, you could make intellectual arguments that, of course, people are miffed by gas prices. They don't like that inflation is high. They don't like the state of the economy. You could make that argument, and that's a fair argument. But at the same time, I think people, if they're paying attention, again, we have no idea if they're paying attention, but people, if they're paying attention, would also be interested, I would say, at least in what the committee is doing and what the committee has unearthed. So I think there's just a lot of dimensions to this. And when I watch this, Nicole, I think about just how they are assembling a record for the historical ledgers of this country, which I think is just also incredibly important and actually goes beyond whether people are going to vote on this discrete topic come November. I think that's almost, and just again, one more thing, I'm sorry to ramble on here, Nicole, but in addition to that, if you listen to what Republicans have been saying, the Republican leadership, we've written a lot about this, about how the committee is not made up properly, it's to this, it's to that. Those kinds of arguments and the argument that they should be holding primetime hearings on inflation and whatever, those look incredibly small at the moment compared to what this committee has unearthed. And I'm very jaded, I'm very cynical and very skeptical, and I'll admit that, but I just think that this committee has done a tremendous job of assembling just almost an airtight ledger, an airtight accounting of facts.
I'm so glad to hear. I mean, with your proximity to the players and the presentation, it's really it's fascinating to hear that, Jake. And I just want to I want to preview what's going to happen this week, because it is in some ways the part that we know the most of from the Raffensperger call, which happened. That was the story that we were all 24/7 in the hours leading up to both the Georgia special election and then the insurrection itself. And it's still remarkable. I went back and listened to the whole thing. It's remarkable that happened and nothing has happened to Donald Trump. You listen to it and it's like listening to the old tapes that get declassified after a mob trial. It's incredible. But to the point you're making, Jake Sherman, one of the things that seems to matter is the way that witnesses are treated. And it sounds like a little thing, but the fact that these in the inner sanctum of Trump world. I mean, Mark Short didn't want to be there. He says that he's there under subpoena. I've seen his appearances on Fox News where he has nothing nice to say about the Select Committee, but he says he had to go because he was subpoenaed. You hear Bill Barr, looking like there's nowhere he'd rather be. I mean, the interactions are so fruitful for the committee. They get the president's daughter to say that on the question of whether or not he won, she agreed with Bill Barr. They get the president's daughter to say on the question of calling Mike Pence the place Donald Trump said he gets to grab women because he's famous, she felt sick. They have two witnesses to testify to Ivanka's sickness, feeling revolted by her father's conduct to the vice president. And on the dicey nature of the vice president's security, it was delivered in an almost monotone testimony, but he came a lot closer than I think any of us understood to real physical peril, Jake.
Yeah, I was shocked by that. I mean, they said he was within 40 feet of these rioters, which I believe at the time Pete Aguilar, who was the man questioning the Pence witnesses, he noted it was basically the distance from him to them. Again, I do feel as if this hearing, these series of hearings, has brought to light or brought to the surface a little bit more about just how at risk we were that day in the Capitol of having something cataclysmic happen. And I mean, I still walk those halls every day. And I when I see those videos of people breaking in, I mean, when you see them breaking in on that first floor of the Senate, that is like feet from the offices of several very prominent senators, just down a flight of stairs from Mitch McConnell's office and Chuck Schumer's office. I mean, this is very, very close to some of the most powerful people in our country. And I just shudder in thinking, what if they got a hold of the ballots? I mean, and I know they're going to get into some of this stuff in the coming days, I assume, but it is stunning to listen to.